IVM.
Hey everybody, quick request once again, if you could help us out by filling out our survey. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. This really helps us talk to advertisers about the kinds of people listening to these shows. Really do appreciate your help, and we're going to be doing a random drawing, and we'll be sending out some IVM swag. Hope you enjoy that.
Hi, I'm Satyajit.
Hi, I'm Racheta.
Welcome to Paperback by the Open Library Project.
We have as our guest today Priyanka Pradhan. Priyanka is the author of the book Tales from the Himalayas, which we discuss in the first half of the podcast.
In the second half, we discuss Wings of Fire by Abdul Kalam, A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking, Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Happy listening!
My grandfather's bicycle always struck me as a very odd object. It was big, strong, and sturdy enough to ride along the steep and rough mountains, but it was also the most uncomfortable ride in the world. It was painted black, so I always called it the Black Elephant. I would stare at it in awe every time Boo Boo, my grandfather, rushed out of the house, sliding it off its heavy stand on which it rested when parked. He would always urge me to hurry up after him. He would tilt the bicycle sideways towards me so I could prop myself on the carrier behind him and sit on the makeshift seat. The bicycle endured the bumps and slippery gravel along the narrow lanes of Mussoorie as Boo Boo navigated the sharp bends effortlessly. The aroma of burning coal fire and boiling rice melted into the air when we cycled through the edge of the village. But it quickly changed into a strong, woody musk as the bicycle glided into the pine forest. Even when I closed my eyes, I could tell exactly where we were, just from what I smelled. Each time the tires went over a bump, I would grab onto Boo Boo's torso, his old check shirt giving me a whiff of strong detergent.
Thank you, Priyanka Pradhan. That was an excerpt from her book, Tales from Himalayas. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. One more reminder, people, please go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and help us out. It will take you a couple of minutes to fill out this survey, but it really is very, very helpful for us. For the people who do fill out the survey and are willing to drop us their email address, we're going to do a special drawing and send out some IVM swag to everybody. So please do help us out with that. But what a week it's been on the network. There's so many things to talk to you all about. Let me run through some of the biggest highlights really, really quickly, right? So Sanjay Jha was on Cyrus Says. What an incredible conversation. I mean, I can't say enough about it. Check that out. We had Hansal Mehta on Maruk Inayat's Note talking about 1992 scam. Amazing stuff. We had Vishal Gondal talking to Nikhil Advani about his career in film. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet spoke to Gunjan Arya, the CEO of OML, and Samiksha Unyal from Bacardi about the history of NH7, the Weekender Festival. On Postcards from Nowhere, Utsav had an amazing episode about the Bushmen of Kalahari. Begin the Journey, Ashish Vidyarthi talks about career choices. On Naan Curry, they talk about cake. What a fun show that was. And on This Round is on Me, we had Dr. Sanjay Arora talking to Gauri about Suburban Diagnostics Company and what he sees as the future of healthcare in India. And for our Tamil speakers, if you haven't been checking out Sivakami and Sabatam, why haven't you? Please do go check that out. Kavita's doing an amazing job telling that story. And with that, let me get you back to your show.
Welcome to Paperback by the Open Library Project. I am your co-host Satyajit, storyteller and entrepreneur. I'm hosting this podcast with my co-founder at the Open Library Project, Racheta Sharma.
Hi guys, my name is Racheta. I'm an ex-banker, social impact entrepreneur, podcaster, writer, and publisher. You can check out my deliberations on Instagram at neural_pathways and my articles for Thrive Global India. The Open Library Project is a curated library service which is offered to corporates on a subscription basis. The idea here is to create a knowledge community and develop a growth mindset amongst our members.
Today we have on our show Priyanka Pradhan, author of Tales from Himalayas, which is a runner-up for the Monte Grappa Writing Prize 2020 at the Emirates Literature Festival, Dubai. And she is the Ruskin-born Promising Writer Award winner at the Dehradun Literature Festival 2019 this October, where she was handpicked by Mr. Ruskin Bond himself. Welcome to the show, Priyanka.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And congratulations on all the accolades. You seem to have debuted in fabulous style. So
thank you so much. Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah, and really, it is an honor to be, appreciated by Ruskin Bond. So
yeah, absolutely. He's been one of my idols while growing up. I've been reading his books all along my childhood, and it is indeed a very unique privilege to have been, picked by him and to be mentored by him.
In fact, I had gone on a trip to Landor, and Ruskin Bond stays in Landor. He every Thursday he goes to the Cambridge Library and he signs, everyone's books for them. So it's really, really sweet and intimate, and he's very, open to speaking and answering many questions.
Yes. Oh yes, it was a real pleasure meeting him. He spoke so much about, him growing up there in Missouri, and about his writing style and about his process, and it was so fascinating.
Yeah. And speaking of Missouri, you just read an excerpt which I think is reliving some moments from your childhood.
Actually, I've never really lived in the mountains.
Okay.
But I've lived in Mumbai for most of my life. But my folks belong to Uttarakhand. My grandparents came to Mumbai in the early 1960s. Yeah. And because my grandfather was inducted into the Indian Navy. And this is why, the future generations kind of grew up in Mumbai, and they kind of lost their connect with their roots. So this is why my grandmother would tell us stories, or at least keep the grandchildren, in close connect. So this is why her stories kind of brought out, the culture of Uttarakhand. We learned so much about its food, the way people dress, what they did, their traditions, without ever having gone there. So the first chance I got when I grew up and I could travel by myself, I just went straight to Uttarakhand, and I have fallen in love with that place, and because I could literally relive her stories, in real life. And that's exactly why I actually got inspired to tell stories from the Himalayas, because, when my daughter was born, I've always wanted to write a book, but I didn't know what it was, what it was going to be. So, and then inspiration struck when my daughter was born, and I thought, I have so many stories to tell, and she's born in Dubai. She has absolutely no connect at all to India, right? And she's growing up here. So it would be really nice if I, compiled a few stories from what my grandmother told me and from my own experiences in the Himalayas, and, tell it to her so that she could get a sense of flavor, a sense of what the Himalayas are about, and, about our legacy as well. So that is how it all started. But then I thought, okay, why not give it a shot and try and publish it?
Fantastic. So how long did it take you to go from thought to actually having a finished manuscript in your hand? How was that process? And
this was completely new to me, so I had no idea how to go about it. But and what I did was, first I wanted to just write, compile, a six-story collection, and it was going to be for a much younger audience. It was just going to be bedtime tales kind of thing. So when I pitched it to publishers, they came back to me with great feedback, saying that, it's actually very short a script, and it's not, commercially viable to publish such a small collection of story. Okay. So that is why they asked me to work on it. And, I got feedback from so many kind of publishers. And then, so I could just work on it and kind of expand the manuscript, do more research, add more teeth to it. So gradually it changed, and it changed a lot over time. From I think 8,000 words has gone to 35,000 words. Wow. It suddenly became a huge project for me.
No, but definitely I think that, a lot of India is unaware of, the folk tales and the history of the mountains.
So relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not available anywhere. We don't know much. So, this is...
And I think there's so much wisdom in ancient tales.
Mm-hmm.
could be relevant and, it could be relatable to anyone. They're timeless tales.
Yeah.
So just two of the stories in this book are actually adapted from folk tales from Kumaon. These are the ones that my grandmother told me, but there are a lot that are also inspired by the culture of Uttarakhand and by its food. That's something like that's the top that's my top recommendation to do for anyone who goes to Uttarakhand. You must try the local cuisine. It's just out of the world. It's very unique, and yeah, it definitely inspired me to write a couple of stories.
I think you also covered, some stories about the Chipko movement and forest protection. So,
Yeah, there are two stories actually that are based on real life heroes from Uttarakhand. One is, the cover that depicts Nain Singh Rawat, who was one of the biggest explorers, Indian explorers of the 19th century. And he's very little known today. So I thought it was important to kind of bring his story out. It's a very exciting story about how he single-handedly traveled to Lhasa and determined the altitude and under the disguise of a monk. That was one story. And the other story was, of course, the Chipko movement, where Gaura Devi, a middle-aged, uneducated woman from a marginalized community, actually kind of sparked off a revolution that is known the world over today, which I think is incredible. It's an incredible story to talk about for children to, understand why this happened. The story also talks about not just about the movement, but also why it was important to bring this out. Why was it important, and why is it so relevant today as well, and will be in future? Because forest conservation and environment, consciousness is something that every child, I think, should understand. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the next pandemic we're going to be dealing with. So yeah,
it's a scary world out there, but I think we can contribute to, something at least. Awareness will solve the problem for sure.
Fantastic. Absolutely. So Priyanka, tell us where is the book available?
The book is available in India on Flipkart and Amazon, and the ebook is also available on Kindle. So, and yes, it's being distributed in bookstores as well. But now considering COVID conditions, not many people are going out there to bookstores physically. Yep. So I think
Awesome. And if there were 3 words, you would use to describe the mountains, then what would they be?
Wow.
Is that one of them?
Wow is definitely one of them.
So I would say magnificent.
Absolutely.
Cosmic. Can I use a phrase instead of a word?
Sure.
I'll call them close to my heart.
Brilliant.
That note, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back after this.
Do you wonder what goes inside the mind of an achiever? How do they manage to get back up on their feet in spite of their failures? Do they really do something different? You're absolutely right. Yes, they do. I'm Aditi Surana. Join me every Wednesday and Friday on my show Absolutely Right, where I use my special tool of handwriting analysis, also known as graphology, to interview high performers and study secrets behind their success and personality. You can catch us on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.
Welcome back, guys. We still have with us Priyanka Pradhan, author of Tales from Himalayas. Hey, Priyanka, that was a very enlightening first half. I think all of us have this sudden, we want to give in to the urge to run to the mountains.
Always.
I think we always have that pull, from the mountans.
And you're lucky, in India, you can actually run off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next book we're discussing is Wings of Fire by APJ Abdul Kalam. And of course, Kalam is one of the most respected people of the last century and this century.
An incredible, inspiring human. I mean, I've yet to, come across someone like that. So this book was actually gifted to me by my dad. in my teens, and you know how dads are, it's like laminated the cover and stapled it and given it to me, saying like, you must read this. It's a very important book. And I said, okay. I wasn't as a child, I was a voracious reader, but I was really not into non-fiction as much. I was into fiction of all kinds. But this was my first non-fiction book, and since it came very highly recommended by my father, so I read it, and I was intrigued and completely fascinated by APJ Abdul Kalam. I mean, he's an incredible person. And the 2 pages into the book, I was hooked. And such an incredible story, and unforgettable story about recognizing and using your inner potential to the fullest. And this is a lesson that is so relevant for teenagers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think this is I would strongly recommend this book, especially to young adults and teens.
His life is like a lesson in humility, because
Absolutely. I can't imagine how he single-handedly, raised a space station from dust. It is just absolutely incredible.
It just goes to show you, whatever your beginnings are, because he came from such humble beginnings, it's possible to really reach and accomplish impossible dreams in your lifetime. Because
it boggles my mind to think about it. It really does.
Yeah.
And he's always encouraged, I think, the youth of India to, be more creative, imaginative.
In fact, one of the biggest supporters of the youth and the youth getting interested in science and in India, that, he's going to be a shining star for India for many centuries to come, probably. So,
this is a book that I will always remember for the rest of my life, because it is so inspiring. Fantastic. And the next, the other book that also had a very big impact is Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. Also something that I read in my early years, which also came recommended by my dad.
Okay. Nice.
Yes, my dad was
so he set you on the right path.
Non-fiction reads.
Some good books.
Yeah, I guess you owe it to him that you've written a book now, because he's got you interested into reading and writing.
Yeah. So he got me interested into non-fiction writing, actually. But I was always, since I was a kid, maybe 5th standard onwards, I have been a voracious reader, but mostly of fiction.
So tell us, what about Stephen Hawking's book really stood out for you? What an amazing person again.
Just the depth of the subject matter was something that was fascinating. And the book was about dimensions of space and time and how the universe began and black holes. This was it sent me spinning into another direction, existentialism. And for a small kid, that was quite something. So it brought up questions about, our purpose as humans and my purpose as an individual. It was an amazing read.
Yeah, I think it definitely brings out...
It was about science, but it also kind of, sent me thinking about philosophy.
I mean, science and philosophy are pretty...
interlinked somewhere. Yes, interlinked. For sure.
We've had that discussion on the podcast many times.
Yes, absolutely. I believe they're interlinked. Absolutely.
Yeah. Stephen, I think one of the best things about Stephen Hawking's books is that it, in such simple words, explains such complex concepts that, you've been trying to grasp, but then suddenly it all makes sense to you when you're reading these books. So along with A Brief History of Time, I think another one that I highly recommend is The Theory of Everything, which... is written in such simple language that anyone can understand what's been spoken about. And it just ignites such a strong interest in physics and science and existentialism and philosophy. It's amazing.
That's on my to-read list now.
Yeah, and you don't have to shy away from science. It's actually interested. So
I'm always loved writing, actually.
Perfect.
And I think the last book that we are discussing is one of the most popular book of our times, at least as far as I can tell. It's Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and speaks about the flow of work or the flow of your life. So tell us a little bit about this book, Priyanka, because
this book was actually, my husband reads a lot of nonfiction, and this was recommended by him. We were just having a conversation one day, and he said, in this creative field, especially, this book is so relevant for you because it talks about, one's experiences of deep enjoyment, of creativity, and total involvement with life. And being in a creative field of, like, say, writing, whether you're an artist, I think this is so relevant for people in those fields. Yeah, so I was a bit apprehensive because of the pitch, I don't usually like preachy books.
Mm.
So I was like, I don't want someone telling me how to live my life. But yeah, it did teach you, by ordering the information that enters your consciousness, you can discover true happiness and greatly improve quality. I think it's up to you to kind of pick and choose what you can, take from the book. So I believe I kind of got something out of it for sure. I'm not really into, say, books that talk about how to live your life, but I thought there was something in it for me for sure. So yeah, if you're interested in human psychology and philosophy, this is a decent read.
Right.
You come up with a few points that you may disagree with, as I did, but overall it's worth a read.
I think what it does is kind of, and like with all great nonfiction books, kind of puts things in a different perspective. And
and it's important to see all kinds of perspectives.
Yeah, usually we are just exposed to our own perspective or the perspective of those around us. But, the great thing about some of these books is that you're getting to see like how great thinkers think or why they have certain thoughts and why they follow through with some of them and probably leave most of them aside. So, I've been reading this book for a while and it's actually fantastic in terms of, I found it like the way it's explained, some of the things made sense to me more clearly now than I've ever thought about before. So I really recommend this book to anyone, like you rightly said, in the creative field or even anyone in general. It just helps you kind of make yourself more efficient.
And just like starts a new, thought process. And I think sometimes books that, you question help you discover more than, books that are in your range of, thinking. So definitely, I think it's a book that makes you question a lot of things. And
it came highly recommended. It's one of the top recommended books. So I definitely thought, okay, I'll give it a go. And no, I don't regret spending time with it. But I did disagree with a few points. But yeah, overall, it was a nice read. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I invested time in it.
And on that note, Priyanka, thank you so much for being on our show. It was great having you.
Thank you so much for having me.
If any of our audience wants to reach out, are you available on Instagram or?
Yes, I'm available on Instagram, very much so. I'm called Himalayan_tales_. That's me.
Awesome.
Please do look me up and let's stay connected.
Great. And we wish you like all the best for your book and many future books.
Congratulations on accolades once again.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Big thank you to all our listeners. You can follow the Open Library Project on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook for latest updates on our events, and stay tuned for the next Paperback podcast on IVM Podcasts. Happy reading. You can follow IVM Podcast on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at IVM Podcasts. Listen to Paperback on the IVM Podcast app, website or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Namaskar, dear friends. My name is Ashish Vidyarthi. Life, as you know, is a journey. And you and I, travelers, how can we celebrate this travel? I have a podcast for you. Begin the journey. I share stories and moments from my life. Do tune in every Monday and Thursday to listen to my podcast on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from. Cheers.
Come learn and experience the ABCDs of being queer with me, Shinetro.
And me, Farhad.
On our show, Gay BCD.
The two of us take you through our stories and experiences of being gay men in the city of Mumbai and have candid
and sometimes downright scandalous
conversations about sexuality, gay culture, and everything in between.
Catch new episodes of KBCD every Tuesday on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get all your podcasts from.